knows too much.
Unfortunately, the Illuminati has become a counterintelligence buzz meme deployed by the CIA's tinfoil hat patrol to confuse people and divert attention away from some real men standing behind the curtain. Our history books ignore the fact that history is largely the study of secret societies, and the CIA is just one of many, and the history of intelligence is long and bloody. It all seems to have started with the poor fellow soldiers of Christ and of the Temple of Solomon, otherwise known as the Templars, who began with 9 members in 1129 and the official endorsement of the Catholic Church. They grew enormously over the centuries and became the central bank of Europe with standing armies, merchant fleets, and fortified castles. The Templars built most of the great cathedrals. In 1198, another society appeared out of Germany, also recognized by the Pope of Rome, the Order of the Brothers, the German House of St. Mary in Jerusalem, otherwise known as the Teutonic Knights, and they went on to establish the Kingdom of Prussia. After the Templars became the most powerful global corporation and began making plans to establish their own kingdom in southern France in imitation of the Teutonic Knights, the King of France became greatly alarmed. He devised a plot to move the papacy to France and then conspired to outlaw the order and seize their assets in one fell swoop, while killing or imprisoning all members on Friday the 13th in 1307. This is why Friday the 13th has magical connotations. The Templars and Teutonics created initiatory societies with secret rituals and degrees, all under the direction of a Grand Master of the order, typically a position held for life. These magical societies were influenced by the Pythagoreans, who had once enjoyed immense popularity before the Catholic Church began persecuting paganism. Pythagoras studied with the Zoroastrians, the greatest mathematicians and astronomers, and the Zoroastrians had been influenced by the Scythians and adopted their sacramental and inspirational use of cannabis. All original knight myths, as well as the story of the Holy Grail and the Round Table, can be traced to the Scythians. King Arthur is an update on Heracles. After the Templars were roasted alive at the stake, various secret societies flourished all over Europe, and the most powerful one became known as the Freemasons. The oldest known lodge is in Scotland and traces the order to 1598, although it could have been established as early as 1425. There was much speculation at the time the Templars might have slipped into Masonry in order to survive. In 1534, 7 Spanish noblemen with military backgrounds established the Society of Jesus, known as the Jesuits, and this order assumed fantastic power, eclipsing even the mighty Templars, at which point the Jesuits began attracting persecutions all over Europe, starting in Portugal. Paranoia against them became so great, eventually the Pope outlawed the order in 1773, and they fled to sanctuary in Russia for a few years while still managing to hold on to many assets through fronting operations. 2 years later, the Equestrian, Secular, and Chapiterial Order of St. Joachim was established in Bavaria by 14 German nobles. Some were Catholic, some Lutheran, some Freemasons, some Rosicrucians. Their possible goal was the unification of Germany, which was splintered into 500 separate kingdoms. These knights were dedicated to spreading religious tolerance. It doesn't take much imagination to realize that tolerance might include letting the Jesuits back into Europe. Germany had been divided between Lutherans and Catholics for centuries, resulting in almost constant warfare, so religious tolerance was a popular concept. The following year after the appearance of the Joachim Knights, the Convent of Perfectibility was created at a Jesuit-owned university in Bavaria by a professor of Catholic law named Adam Weishaupt, an orphan raised by Jesuits. The name of Weishaupt's group was eventually changed to the Order of the Illuminati. Several Knights of Joachim were founding members, which certainly guaranteed tremendous influence and potential resources. Weishaupt was a master counterintelligence strategist, and his society was designed as a secret nest inside Freemasonry. "The great strength of our order lies in its concealment," wrote Weishaupt. "Let it never appear in any place in its own name. but always covered by another name and another occupation. None is fitter than the 3 lower degrees of Freemasonry. The public is accustomed to it, expects little from it, and therefore takes little notice of it. Next to this, the form of a learned or literary society is best suited to our purpose. By establishing reading societies and subscription libraries and taking these under our direction and supplying them through our labors, we may turn the public mind which way we will. Weishaupt suggested they secretly enlist the most attractive members of the opposite sex possible into the operation, not as full-fledged members, but as secret operatives, what's known today in spook world as honey traps. Weishaupt sought virtuous and non-virtuous members and kept those 2 groups unaware of the other. In fact, most members only knew their handler. And once a person joined, Weishaupt was given details on their background, desires, and ambitions, and some were immediately elevated, guaranteeing their lifelong devotion to his order. The Templars, Teutonics, and Jesuits had pioneered the art of counterintelligence, and Weishaupt may have studied them all, but he had no background in ritual and launched his society prematurely with a plethora of degrees before he had any rituals on paper. He reached out to an experienced Mason to invent the rituals. When some of Weishaupt's methods were revealed to the public, there was a panic against secret societies in Bavaria, and all were outlawed, although the ban was repeated several times, indicating it had a slippery hold on the situation, and it's possible the ban only served to make the group more notorious and more popular, just as it's possible Weishaupt was a Jesuit front all along. Eventually, Weishaupt announced the dissolution of the order and retired to live near the estate of one of the Joachim Knights. But after the French Revolution, the leading Jesuit in France declared the Jacobins who fomented the revolution had been manipulated by the Illuminati, a charge repeated by a Christian historian in Scotland. In fact, various reading rooms around France had helped foment the revolution, just as Weishaupt had suggested they do. In more modern times, the Knights of Malta and Opus Dei have achieved immense influence, power, and wealth inside the Catholic Church, whose mysterious banking operations are kept heavily cloaked. In the 1980s, Anthony Sutton would write America's Secret Establishment, a book that revealed Yale University's Order of Skull and Bones was likely a chapter of the Illuminati. There are many secret societies and many orders with religious connections, and untangling this complex world is the key to opening the curtain on the men pushing buttons on the Wizard of Oz. Unfortunately, almost everything written on this subject is fabricated as a diversion away from truth. The timeline begins in 1478. The Spanish Inquisition attacks the last vestiges of Manichaeism that had survived in a quasi-Christian form. If you study the complex history of the development of Illuminati-style operations, you end up with the belief the Civil War could have actually been an Illuminati plan. And you can say the same thing about the creation of the Mormon Church. And Skull and Bones is really the only doorway or window, and most of that information has been mucked up with this info. But we do know the founder of Skull and Bones financed John Brown's propaganda campaign, an eventual terror campaign, in 1837. And we know that in 1880, a Prussian police spy revived the Illuminati in Munich, but changed the name of the order to Ordo Templi Orientis, the OTO, which was eventually taken over by MI6 operative Aleister Crowley. After the Illuminati were exposed in the late 1770s and found in possession of all sorts of devious spy tech, the real secrets of the order were shipped to the King of Sweden to protect them. These documents were eventually returned to a Masonic lodge in Bavaria and were seized by the Nazis, who briefly imprisoned the head of the OTO, banned all Masonic lodges, unless, of course, they pledged loyalty to Hitler.